Hi guys, welcome to Mr. Cloud Book channel. Today is the day 7 of the masterclass of the DevOps, and we already discussed about the what is Git and GitHub key terminology. But we will discuss more about the Git today. And what is Git and version control system. For your information, I created a new TopMate service as well, and I am adding the new projects. But I am not uploading some projects in the to the YouTube. But I will explain those projects in the TopMate link because everyone is just copy pasting all those things without giving any credit. That's why I don't want to expose my advanced projects from now onwards because we do so many hard works to give you support and give you the knowledge. But what happens is, so we don't get what we want. Like we don't asking for money or anything, but we will just ask to share the videos, share the blogs. But they create own content. They're writing the same blogs and adding their own names to that blogs. Like that is what we are getting. So we don't get any traffic that we are getting right now. So I answered almost every person to the issue that are facing with my projects, but giving some credits to me is not a big issue, but they don't do anything. What is Git and version control system? Today we will discuss about the Git. So Git is a distributed version control system used for tracking changes in your source code during software development. It allows multiple developers to collaborate on projects efficiently by managing revisions, facilitating and branching and merging, and providing mechanisms for code reviews and collaboration. So Git is a distributed version control system. Version control systems like Git are essential for managing the complexity of the software development and ensuring the integrity and consistency of the code base over time. Git is a free and open source version control system. This is freely available on the internet. No commercial like the license to be needed to install to download the Git. Everyone can download the Git and everyone can use the Git also. And in the organizations, everyone use the Git to pull the code, to clone the code, and to do the changes. And they will again push the code to the GitHub repository. So because it will track your everything that you changed, the modification files, the newly added files, everything will be tracked by the Git. So that's why this is the most popular version control system. So with the help of the Git, we can maintain the version of the project. So we can maintain so many versions of our projects. So what is version control system? So version control system helps a software team, like the software team, manage the changes to source code over a time. So it will manage the changes that are made to your code in the over the time or in the upcoming time. It will always keep tracks your changes and keep manages your changes to your source code. So that is the use of the version control system. It will versioning your upcoming, I mean the changes, the modifications and everything you do in your files. Okay. So with the help of the version control system, we can create a different of the versions of the source code. So with the help of the version control system only, we are creating the different versions of the like the code in the Git repository. For example, you are working on some feature, like there is some feature called something like you are using, like you are developing the some mobile application, so which don't have any artificial intelligence feature, but you want to right now, like the from future is artificial intelligence, right? So you want to add that feature into your source code. So what you will do before starting to write the code, like if you want to start to write the code for the future branch, we can make some version of the source code, like the what is the version that having right now. Like if you our source code have the 1.10 version, so the after the updating the future bands, we can move it up to 1.2, like that. That is the version. So once if you complete the significant feature, like if you update the artificial intelligence feature to your application, you can again version your software. So after adding the new feature, you can give your source code another version. Okay. So we can mention the new features that we added in the repo. So if you are adding new changes, like we added the artificial intelligence feature to our application, we can mention it in the like the repo also on the source code versioning things. Okay, that is the use of the version things. So version control software keeps track of every modification to the code in a specific kind of a database. So it will store your every changes, every modification, the history of the code, the history of the files, everything will be stored in the kind of the database. So Git will maintain the version of your source code. There are no limitations to store your data in the database. So it will keep tracking your files, everything, like even if you made the single word change, it will keep tracks of the change that you made. Okay, so it will keep tracks your modification in database. So I already told that everything will be stored in the database, right? So the database is called a Git repository. So we already discussed about in the Git terminology. So what is a Git repository means? .git folder is called as the Git repository. Everything will be stored in that particular .git repository. Whatever the modification you do and the history of the source code and everything will be stored in that particular .git. Okay, so that is the database for your source code. If you are versioning our code, like if you are if you are versioning our code, it will helps you team to roll back our previous version in case of any issue with the specific version. Okay, so let's give me an example. I am working on the artificial intelligence apply like the future. So I have the some new some futures, old futures that I have. So it's working fine. Like the without artificial intelligence, my source code is good and my application is working fine, but I want to add a new feature. So I am working on the new feature as a new project, and after I'm completing the feature, like I added the artificial intelligence feature, like getting the output from the, like adding some chat GPT to my application to get the instantaneous replies like that. So after what happened, if I add the code, I mean the future branch is added to our main branch and we tested it, like we tested it in the local and everything good, but whenever it's like in the production servers, so you are facing some kind of issues with the new branch. Okay, with the new version of your application. So what you will do, you will again easily redirect or roll back to your old version from the new version. So that is the use of the version control system. So if you are using the version 10, I mean like if you are using the version 10 now, with the old version is 10, after adding the software like the AI feature is added to your application, that is version 11. So if your version 11 is facing some kind of issues, you can easily roll back to the version 10. Okay, so this easily done because of the version control system. So what happens if the .git folder or if we don't have the version control system? So with the options of the Git in the version control system, uh, what happens means the we don't get, I mean like we don't go back to our old version, because we don't know what we changed in the code and everything. We can't remember all those things, right? So because of the version control system, we can easily roll back. So version control system is always good to have. That's why we are using the Git as the version control system. Okay, everything like whatever, if you don't have the version control of your software code that you are updating, so if anyone deletes the .git repository and some things like you changed some kind of simple like the some URL you changed in the code, but you didn't version it, but you updated to the future branch, and like if you don't know where did you updated it and you are facing the issues, you can't come back to the old version, you will again face in the old branch also. That is the issue that you get if you don't use the version control system. Okay, everyone needs, even the every software employee knows like he should learn the version control system. So there are two types of the version control system. Right now we have distributed version control system and centralized version control system. So this is the centralized version control system. So centralized version control system in CVCS, I mean simple form, and central version control system. So there is a central server that stores all the version of your project files, and users check out the files they need to work on. So and they will check out the files, I mean like they want to bring the files they want to update, and everything will be stored in the centralized in one server. So that is centralized version control system. For example, subversion, and there is another tool called concurrent version system. Okay, for example, I will give a simple real-time scenario. You can easily understand the centralized version control system. So imagine a group of students working on a group project in a classroom. Okay, in this scenario, the classroom serves as a central server, and the teacher acts as the version control system. Each student has their own copy of the project files and paper, documents, etc. stored in their desks. When a student wants to make changes to a file, they must raise their hand and request permission from the teacher to access the master copy of the file stored in front of the classroom. Okay, once the student has made their changes, they return the updated file. Okay, they will return only the updated file to the teacher, who then updates the master copy stored at the front of the classroom. Okay, so what happens, like, you don't completely clone your complete like the repository. You have to clone the whatever file you want to update. Okay, so other students who need to update the file must request permission to access it from the teacher. So we have to get the access from the teacher. This centralized approach ensures that there is only one authoritative version of the project files at a given time, and that changes are carefully managed and tracked by the teacher. So everything will be tracked by the teacher, because she knows what she is doing, who is updating, and who is updating which file. Like that, everything will be keep tracked by the teacher. Okay, however, it can also lead the bottlenecks if multiple students need to make changes simultaneously, or if teacher is unavailable. That is what happens if some, like, if your repository main owner is not available, you don't know where to push, and the keep tracking will be missed with the central version control system. So some are drawbacks are single point of failure. Since all project files are stored on one central server, if the server goes down, everything will be inaccessible, or no one can access or collaborate on the project until the issue is resolved. So limited offline access, we will get the limited offline access with the centralized version control system, and slower performances. So performance can be suffered, especially when dealing with the large files, or when many users are accessing the server simultaneously. We will get the slower performance, and there is a less flexibility is also available. Users may have limited autonomy and flexibility, since all the changes must go through the central server. Whatever the change, everything will be informed to the main central server. Then only it will leads to the bottlenecks and delays, and especially in large teams. Okay, there will be a less redundancy, since there are only one central repository. There is a less redundancy compared to the distributed version control system. If the central server experiences data loss, it can be challenging to recover the lost data. So that is the main centralized version control system issue. So there will be a difficulty in the branching and merging and everything. So that's why overall CVS, I mean centralized version control systems, are served as the foundational approach to version control. Many of these drawbacks led to the development and adoption of the distributed version control system like Git. So we are using the Git, which is the distributed version control system. So distributed version control system like a Git allows you each user to have their own local repository that contains the entire project, not only single file, but it contains the entire project history, entire projects, and everything. Every file should be allowed to the particular developer. So users can work offline, and they can do the commit changes to the local repository and later synchronize with the other repositories to share changes. So distributed version control system offer more flexibility and redundancy compared to the centralized version control system. So let's talk about the some real life scenario of the distributed version control system. A distributed version control system like a Git can be compared to a scenario where a group of students collaborates on a project using their individual laptops. So last time we have the files, I mean, like, we have the some kind of test papers like that for the centralized, but in the distributed we have the different, like, everyone have their own laptops without needing the constant supervision from the central authority. Okay, so imagine a group of students working on a presentation together. Each student has their own copy of the presentation files stored on their laptop, so they can work on their parts independently, even if they are not connected onto the internet or to each other. So like, so if you someone is giving the presentation, one person is working on one image, or like one future, so someone works, or some other people is working on some other feature, like that. So only if there are 5 students, 5 people is working on different student, and at the end they will merge the all the things into a single file. Okay, So this is the use of distributed version control system. Okay, when a student completes their portion of the presentation, they can merge their changes with the main project repository, which may be stored on the cloud service like GitHub or Bitbucket. This process is similar to the submitting a pull request in a Git. So you have to tell to the team leader, so okay, so everything is done. If you check it, so please accept these changes to our presentation, like that. He will, okay. So if everything goes, he will accept and he will merge into the main, like that. So other students can then review the changes. So whatever the changes he made, so every student can do the changes. In the centralized version, so only teacher can do the review, but here in the distributed, everyone in the team can do the reviews. Okay, and even make additional edits. So we can do the some additional edits also in the projects. Okay, since everyone has their own copy of the project files, so they can work simultaneously without waiting for others to finish or for the central authority to grant permission. Okay, if students laptop is crashes or the files get corrupted, they can easily recover from their work from the main repository. Additionally, because each student has to complete the copy of the project history, they can revert to the previous versions to create a new branches to experiment with different ideas without affecting the main branch. So we can do any changes in the working copy. So you can do any changes, you can test there. So everything is goes fine, you can move it to that repository. Then they will do some the classroom HR, and like that he will do the changes. He will do the some kind of reviews, and then if everything is goes fine, so he will add it to the main server. We can pull whenever we want. Like we can do some changes again, and we can again push it to the repository without any authority. So overall, a distributed version control system like a Git enables the decentralized collaboration, empowers individually contributions, and provide redundancy and flexibility, making it a well suited for the modern software development workflows. So these are the difference between the centralized and distributed. Centralized is like we need to one person to review all the files, and we can download the only one files, like that. But in the distributed version control system, everyone have their own repo, like the complete repo in his local, and he will do everything changes in that particular work copy, and then he will push to the repository. So then the main manager or senior, we will do the some reviews, and then we will push to the distributed version control system like GitHub. Okay, so this is the two version control system that we use, but where centralized is very old, but it's not used for the present now situations. So we need to use the distributed version control system. So I hope you understand what is Git and what is the use of the version control system, and you understood the two versions that we discussed right now, centralized and distributed version control systems. And in the next video, I am going to explain in the single video how to install Git on the Windows, Mac OS, and Linux machines also. Okay. Thanks for watching the video. Keep on supporting the Mr. Cloudbook channel.